I struggle with rutted takeoffs,
Mm.
and trying to keep my head looking forward above the jump. And I want to know something how I can stop myself kind of overthinking while going up the takeoff, because the ruts that we have are quite long sand tracks, and the ruts are very, very long. And so I'm always having to try like 30 different ruts going across the trail. I'm going to try and figure out, commit to one. What would be something I could try to like help with commitment to push through going through the trails, like going through that like rut and not feeling your front wheel's gonna dip either side?
Now, any specific kind of jump? Like, are these tabletops or doubles or triples or what are
Yeah,
we
like
working with?
long takeoff tabletops, long takeoff doubles.
Yeah.
Basically, just like a long ski jump kind of thing.
Yeah. That is honestly what's funny. You're from Eastern Australia, probably.
No, so I'm from the UK originally, but I moved to New Zealand 5 years ago, or coming up 6 years ago. So
Oh, okay.
I haven't moved there since.
Have you ever, by chance, gone to the Man Jump race in Australia, south of Perth?
No, I've listened to Gypsy's podcast and stuff. He's made a big rave about it, and
Yeah.
so I want to go to Oz and race over there. Would be cool, but at the moment, starting away in small New Zealand and hopefully kind of work our way out, which be key. So
So reason I said Manji is there was one jump specifically there. They had like a sand section where you come out of a right hander and the ruts. And I guess I've had a lot of experiences with this, but for some reason I just thought of that one. Must be your accent. And the ruts were what felt like forever long. That's
yeah,
that's the hardest. And what about the landings? Are the landings the same way, or the landings kind of just sand or
landings are
whatever you
pretty
can land
short.
wherever?
Yeah, landings are pretty short. Like especially the one of the tabletops is basically a 90-degree left-hander, and it comes like a long straight away, but like quite a lot of like a whoops and kind of square edges. So obviously where the sand has been digging in, it's been kind of catching the square edges, and so when you're riding at them, you're basically hitting square edge curbs everywhere, all the way along this
Mm.
straight, and it's kind of just super long, just traversing long sand ruts all the way up the takeoff. And so every time I got there, I always like I try to keep my head looking forward as far as I can, trying to spot the takeoff, but I just seem to like can't like try focus on one straight line and try and block out the rest of the lines and try to focus and not feel like I'm gonna swap up the takeoff or something like that. And so that's something that's always been on my mind of overthinking it quite a lot, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. So, me personally, this would kind of be my process. So, tall gear, low RPM,
Yep.
especially if you're dealing with sand and square edge crap. So, you don't want to
Yep.
have wheel spin because that's just going to make the bike even more unpredictable. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Really tight with my toes. That will just give me confidence that like my foot's not going to get snagged. And
Yep.
then, honestly, it's probably more of like not just head looking forward, obviously that's important, but like chest being puffed out and
Yep.
up, over exaggerating the hips maybe more than anything. Because the more my
Yep.
hips are over exaggerated, the more confidence I'll have that like that bike could get a nasty kick or cross rut out of nowhere and then I would be fine. I think
Yeah.
that's
To
the
really kind of
biggest.
like extend your hip up, eh?
Yeah, again, at least coming from my experience, and like supercross ruts are one thing. It's not usually sand. It's usually just deep ruts that are at least tacky. That's pretty not easy, but it's easier.
Yeah.
In outdoors, you're like Red Bud or Millville or something that you're dealing with loam and it's unpredictable ruts. You just have to, I guess, plan for the kick and
Yeah.
not try to be so precise. The rut that I would choose would always be the most shallow one that I could find, I guess.
Yeah.
So pick the best of the worst. But yeah, the hips are really important. And then, yeah, you're saying you're just kind of getting mentally a little bit hung up. That's the
Yeah.
hardest.
I think
That's the
losing
hardest part.
concentration is something that I probably struggle with, is trying to foresee like kind of, especially because the ruts are so long. I want to see if I can try to keep my head of obviously focus in the one single rut. And I think when you have a lot of distractions of probably other people, I'm trying to focus on like myself solely, which is something I'm trying to really work on.
Yeah, I can relate to all of those problems. So yeah, I mean, maybe that next step is just focus. Take the focus away from worrying about whatever the heck you're worrying about, and just try to puff your
Yeah.
chest out more and get the hips into a better spot. And maybe you'll experience a few cross ruts or kicks and realize that
Yeah.
it does a lot less. Um, and the bike will, even if it does react, you just can bring it back so much easier. It's always the moments of the oh crap moments where all of a sudden you like hunker down and you death grip
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
hold your breath and then your back hunches and it's like everything you do everything wrong all at once. And that
yeah.
is what's going to make the bike kick.
Yeah, I've got heaps of videos of me, my partner filming, kind of just alongside this takeoff and this tabletop, and when I'm riding, it feels like I'm not doing. It feels like I'm trying to like practice the movement that obviously you've been kind of preaching about, and obviously it's definitely making a difference. I notice it massively, but it feels like I do it up the takeoff, and it feels like when I get to the very edge, like as soon as I'm about to take off, I immediately just go like to panic and push away,
Yeah.
and so committing to kind of keeping your head over the bars is something is I find really struggle with sometimes. I'm trying to practice it a lot more, but it's just there's still all these little kind of individual things that definitely make it obviously 1, 2%, 3%, 4%. Obviously, everything adds up in the end.
Have you done the obvious progression step, which be just stop worrying about clearing some of those jumps for a minute and just go halfway or
Yeah,
whatever and just really make sure that you're not doing the stupid push away?
yeah. I've been looking at videos and trying to go over myself at the same time. ADHD is a hell of a problem, so you definitely have to try and figure those things out sometimes. But yeah, it's just trying to keep on top of those things. But when I'm riding downhill, riding BMX, running all these other sports, I find I can not hit no problem. When it comes to motor, it's just something. It's just one of those weird things that just can't really just get over the edge of just going, oh, it's fine. I've got 200 and some odd mil of travel. I've got keeping the front wheel up, landing like perfectly in the back, or it's kind of just nice right away. Just all these little things struggle to try and just piece together. And I feel like, just for me personally, that it's a very hard thing to keep on top of.
Yeah, an easy mantra to repeat to yourself too, and this is something that Jet told me when he was really young. He was probably 17 at the time. He just goes, just let the bike push you around the track. Like
Yeah,
at all times, there's no exceptions to that. Like let the bike push you around the track. So that requires you at all times your chest and head to be that far to the front. As soon as like you see that gnarly
yeah,
section, whether it's mud or sand or ruts, or a technical section in the woods, it's always everybody's, no matter how good you are, reaction to do the whole one of these and turn into a
yeah.
lawn dart. And it just makes it 100 times
But
more
front end
difficult.
it,
So it's just
so,
like, all right,
yeah,
let the bike push me around the track. Let the bike push me around the track. And yeah, I would say it just at that point going to take repetition of staying in the right position and realizing, oh, all right, well, nothing weird did happen. If you guys enjoyed this podcast clip and you want to listen to full episodes, you can do so on Spotify and Apple Music. If you want to send in your own video submission, you can join us in the Moto Academy family inside of the Moto Academy app by just going to themotoacademy.com. That's also where you can sign up for a class. Okay, guys, see you next episode.